You hear that Ohtani now has a partial tear in his UCL. From your chair, that means what?
It means now he's one free agent player next year and not two. The whole theory that his agent was going to use is that he's a middle-of-the-order bat and a top-of-the-rotation starter, and you go at a team and say, give me 50 to 60 million a year because I'm giving you two players. Now he's barely going to hit next year, maybe, DH toward the end of the year, and won't pitch till 25, and he may never pitch effectively again because coming back from two Tommy Johns is not easy to do. Very few major leaguers have done it, Nate Eovaldi being one of them, Daniel Hudson being another, but not many. So it really changes his value and changes what he can expect as a free agent.
Wait, just to clarify, David, you don't think that he's really going to be able to hit regularly at the beginning of next season?
I would say that it would be very if I'm signing him, you're asking me if I'm looking at signing him as a free agent and I'm looking at what his value is to my team. Do I think if he has Tommy John, which I would suggest he have immediately and not continue to play anymore this year, have the surgery as quickly as possible and start that recovery? So by the time next April comes, you're talking 8 months. Could he be effective as a hitter? Maybe, but the guarantee that you thought you were getting prior to this injury, the thought of the greatest player of all time coming to your team and what that could mean, it's just not that way anymore, and that's very unfortunate.
David Samson is our guest. He's a former president of the Marlins. He's also the host of Nothing Personal with David Samson, the podcast. It's great. So, David, we talk numbers. It's all funny money to us, because it's abstract when we talk about these big numbers. But what was Ohtani, the full total? I mean, you mentioned about $50 million a year, but what was the full total amount that he may have been looking at if he had been perfectly healthy versus now? And how does that maybe open up the amount of teams? Does it open up the amount of teams that could be making a real pitch to him, like be real viable destinations?
So what's going to be interesting is that you have a situation where if I'm Ohtani's agent, I'm looking for a team who's going to give me an opt-out after 2025. Because if I come back and I'm able to pitch, I want to go back into the market and get my full value as both a number one starter and the best hitter maybe in baseball. So an opt-out's going to be important. And that opens up the possibility that more teams could bid for his services because you're making a much shorter term commitment. What eliminates smaller market teams from going after an Ohtani is not just the amount that he wants, but the number of years toward the end of the contract where it's unlikely that he'll be worth it. Because as great and historic as he is, he can't be who he is now when he's 37, 38 years old. It's just not going to happen. So on a shorter deal, more teams are available to it. And so it'll be interesting to see what kind of creativity is used in order to try to attract Ohtani.
Is there any chance Shohei Ohtani's agent says, okay, now that he's not going to pitch or he won't pitch, he can put more energy into hitting and he'll be even more dominant as a hitter? Does it work like that at all?
I love where your head's at, because can you imagine going to a team and saying, you know what, I'm not going to just be the DH. You can put me in the outfield. I have an above average arm. I'm going to commit to be your right fielder. I'm fast enough and big enough. I could play center field and bat second or third for you. And as a team, I would say that's fantastic. That puts you at $40 million a year for 9 years. Maybe we'll match Aaron Judge. But he wants to get above Aaron Judge and above Scherzer and Verlander on what their annual is, which is $43 million. So he was looking to break both records. And all I'm proposing to you, it's going to be slightly more difficult now because of the reality of this injury.
David Samson is our guest. He's the former president of the Marlins. He's the host of the Nothing Personal podcast, Nothing Personal with David Samson. Go check it out. But so, David, listen, I understand Ohtani is all-time great, right? He is incredible to watch. However, it does feel like, and this is hypothetical, if he can't pitch anymore, the story changes a bit. It's not the same once in our lifetime that we're going to watch. If you're the president of the team or the general manager of a team, well, the GM wouldn't think about this, but maybe the president, are you thinking man, I thought I was going to be able to sell more tickets or be, the business part of this was going to be much bigger because I had this unicorn, and now I have a very great player, but he's not Babe Ruth anymore.
He's clearly closer to the pack. In these past 3 years, you can't deny that he's better than Babe Ruth, better than any player, any 3-year stretch I've ever seen. But at the end of the day, you're signing for future performance. The biggest mistake that teams make in free agency is when they pay for past performance. The real way to do it is to pay for future performance. And so when you're signing Ohtani, you're going to get sponsorship increases. You're going to get the excitement of the offseason jersey presentation and the excitement of the standing ovation when your team gets him. But then you actually have to win. And the truth is, he's been on the Angels, 2 of the top 5 players in baseball, I could argue, and they've got as many playoff wins as I do since Ohtani got into the league. The big donut. So you need to be able to put a team around Ohtani, and to do that, you have to have payroll availability. So you can't have a team who's giving 50% of its payroll to one player. It just doesn't work.
What about the fact that he's Japanese and he has so many Japanese fans, and you get some extra sponsorship, and I know Artie Miranda's gotten a boost from some of that. Does that add to Ohtani's value?
We had Ichiro, and we got extra sponsors for having Ichiro in Miami, but it doesn't come close. You can get 7 figures. You can get multiple deals in 7 figures. You're going to sell some more tickets, but the math doesn't work. The way it only works is if you win and if you draw more people. But in terms of, let's say, Japanese broadcast deals because they want to show Angels games, that's split between all 30 teams. So whoever would sign him would not get that benefit of the increased broadcast deal.
David, got a couple other things for you, but just maybe to wrap up Ohtani here, your best ballpark on what he actually signs for.
So I've had to adjust my thinking because going into yesterday's action, watching him pitch game 1 and watching his velocity down, I certainly did not ponder that he'd need a second Tommy John. I had him well above Judge. I had him about 45 to 50 million by 9, and I thought that would be the minimum, but someone may go to 500 to get it done at a 10th year. Now, I just don't know that I would be giving him $500 million over 10 years. I don't think that's a responsible contract. On the other hand, I would give him the opportunity to make that. So I would give a lot of incentives. If he starts games, if he does come back and pitch, I would offer him a deal that pays him millions of dollars per start, as an example. And so that's why I say creativity is going to be the name of the game this offseason.
David, while we have you, another big question out there with one of the crown jewel franchises in North American sports is the New York Yankees, and it's been a terrible season for them. And listen, Aaron Boone, the manager, might be a casualty here. No one was ever really in love with him in this market to begin with. But Brian Cashman, the general manager, is the real interesting one. You've done deals with him before. Obviously, Giancarlo Stanton, the most famous one, maybe. But Cashman is like so ingrained with the Steinbrenners. I mean, he has worked for that organization since the 80s. Do you really think they could move on from him after this season?
I think it's going to be hard. And Maggie, just going forward, I did not trade Giancarlo Stanton.
I'm sorry.
I'd already been fired.
I'm sorry. Yes, Jeter did it. I'm sorry.
All of the debits for trading Miguel Cabrera and all the bad trades. That one I didn't do.
You know, I'm so sorry. That was Derek Jeter, and Cashman got the better of Jeter in that one.
Oh, I mean,
would Jeter,
say
I'm sorry, Jeter got the better of Cashman in that one. Jeter got the better of Cashman.
Keep in mind, Stanton had a no-trade clause that I did give him. I signed Stanton to that contract, so all of the Yankee fans angry over his contract, that sort of anger I can handle. Brian Cashman has been so successful. To Yankee fans, I have a message. You guys have had amazing, amazing success. You win 100 games. You're in the playoffs. You go to the LCS. Yes, only one World Series since 2009, but it doesn't take away from what you've been this century. But changes do need to be made. I think Cashman stays. I think they do make a change at manager, and I love Aaron Boone. Had him as a player. I think they need a new voice, but what I really think is they need to say they have a new voice. They need to start again because the team looks stale to me. And when your offense struggles, you tend to look stale. But when you look at the team and when you look at the money that is owed to the players aren't really going anywhere. So they need to find another way to get the team back to winning.